Incorporated. This channel has been very dead for about a year or two. It's 2020, so I stopped posting in like 2018 once I started college and things like that. So I stopped filming because I hated the content I was putting out. It was always basically following the YouTuber format of vlogs and games and all these other stuff, and it's like they're fun in the moment, but I kind of hated the content. Like, it's nice to watch other people do it, but for me to post it, I was kind of just doing it for the numbers, and it's like, why am I doing it for the numbers? What am I gonna gain once I get these numbers? I have very oily skin, so bear with me. And so I really enjoy not drama channels, commentary channels, conspiracy channels, and things of that nature. So I feel like that's kind of the route I want to go with, because I feel like I'm a very opinionated person, and I would love to have a platform to share it on. So that's just what this channel is going to be about. And today's video, if you can tell by the title, it might be a little funky because YouTube censors certain words. It's just going to be me speaking on the black community, because as you can tell, I am a black woman. I'm in the community. I see some of our inner issues that other people might not see, not being in the community. So we're just going to start with like the very sub topics, and then we're going to get deeper and deeper in. So I wrote it down, what I want to talk about, so let's get into it. Yeah, let's get into it. The first topic about the black community we're going to speak about is media representation and what that means. So there has been a lot more media representation for black people. I will say that. I will applaud people for that. But let's not act like there's not some biases in the media as when it comes to representation, meaning especially with black women. It's kind of, you see more biracial and more lighter tone black women, which is fine because black women like that, look like that, do exist. But on the other note, black women that are my complexion and darker do exist also, and it's kind of like, why aren't we represented as much? And it's kind of like whenever we speak on it, everybody says, well, you have this black person, you have Zendaya, you have Amanda, and it's like, that's great. They are phenomenal actresses. I love to see them on screen. I love watching their works. But at the same time, it's like, I want to see somebody that looks like me, whether it's a fat black girl or a dark-skinned black girl or whatever the case may be. I don't look like Zendaya. I don't look like Amanda. And it's like, that representation is important, because what if a little girl wants to be an actress someday, but she's like, I don't see anybody that really looks like me. And then they'll name one or two people, and it's like, it's either we hit Lupita or Zendaya. And it's like, there are too many actresses in Hollywood, especially like seeing the diversity in white actors and things of that nature. It's too many aspiring people that want to be actors who are probably phenomenal at their job that just don't get the representation that they deserve. And I feel like black women get the shorter end of the stick when it comes to it, because you see light-skinned men on TV. You see Black Lightning had an albino black man. You see lighter skin, dark skin for black men. And it's like, I love it. I love to see black men represented. I love to see black people represented, period. But can black women get that same allotted, advantage? Like, I love to see everybody else represented, but it's kind of like, what about us? Like, yes, you gave us these handfuls, like you can count them on 5 hands, but come on, we have to diversify. And then people will be like, well, what about the 90s? I didn't grow up in the 90s. I love those shows, don't get me wrong. I love them, but it's like, I can't relate to everything that happened, because 2020 is very different from 1990. It's very different aspects of what people are dealing with, what we're going through, especially with social media being such a big thing. And I just feel like that's something we don't talk about enough. I feel like that's like, people try to be like, oh, just be grateful for what you have. And it's like, I can be grateful, but I can still critique and be like, I want more. And that doesn't just go for black women. It's a lot of minorities that are not just, black, but we're speaking specifically on black people and how me as a black woman sees it in today's standards. Like, the most we have is what, China Ann McClain, her sister from Black Lightning. I'm so sorry, I can't remember her name at the moment. And it's kind of like, after that, who is there? Like, it's not a lot. And it's kind of like, that's kind of sad to see, because everything is like, you always see all these other people being represented, and it's like, okay, what about me? Like, yes, I have these few people, but they don't really look like me. Yes, they identify as me, but they don't look like me. And like, it's just like, representation matters. And just because you give somebody a little doesn't mean it's like, that's like giving you a crumb and be like, you should be happy. Even if it's not a meal, you should be happy you have a crumb. And it's kind of like, we got to work on that, especially with the gaslighting that there is on social media a lot, with like other black women saying like, be grateful, or black men be like, you should be grateful. And it's kind of like, the gaslighting is very, very annoying, because it's kind of like, you're making me feel crazy because I want to see myself be represented, and you don't have an issue because you are represented. And it's kind of like, what's going on here? What's with the little I don't appreciate it. So That's what I will have to say about representation wise. And I feel like there could always be more black people on the screen. A show that I haven't gone into yet, but a lot of people love, is Sex Education, because it is a diverse cast of people, from dark-skinned women to light-skinned women and things of that nature. And it's just kind of like, you love to see it. And if we could have more of that, and it's a different genre than the typical black person in the hood or whatever the case may be. And now I'm about to get into that, the stories of black people and things of that nature. This next thing about media representation is the stories that black people are given. And I see that it's a trend almost to kind of bash black media that doesn't fit the stereotypical black thing. Like, a lot of people like to say Insecure with Issa Rae is a black show pandering to a white audience. It's kind of like, that doesn't make sense, because Issa's the type of person, she has black producers, black writers, black makeup artists, hairstylists. She's basically like putting people on, and it's like, I've heard that on Twitter, and I'm like, I don't really understand it. I'm not the biggest fan of the show, because my genre is kind of like fiction, like superhero type things, or like animation. So that's not like my biggest forte, but at the same time, it's kind of like, I don't appreciate it. And there's an argument of Everybody Hates Chris versus Blackish. We'll say I enjoyed Everybody Hates Chris more, because in my sense, it's more of my type of humor, like poking fun at yourself and your struggles and things of that nature. And I feel like Blackish is more so a black show pandering to a white audience. And I feel like I can see where they're coming from. And I would say Blackish is more of an educational show for people who are not in the black community, versus as Everybody Hates Chris, it was a black show about black people, and it kind of it didn't feel the need to explain. It's kind of like, it is what it is. If you understand, you understand. If you don't, you don't. Which I really appreciate in that sense, and I feel like we should like have more things like that, where we don't have to always explain ourselves. Like, we as black people often like navigate our way through other customs and traditions and other people's media to kind of understand, and like we'll pick it up as we go along to try and understand, versus like when it's black movies or a black thing that's like not your average thing. Is kind of like we have to like explain things to everybody. It's kind of like, no, let them navigate their way, let them figure it out like we figure things out. And I will also say an issue I have is kind of like people being upset at certain black shows that don't fit the black stereotype. And it's kind of like, no, everybody doesn't relate to the struggle. There are black kids in suburbia who deserve to see themselves on TV. There are black kids in the hood who deserve to see them. Like, everybody, black is not one thing. It is not one thing. It is not one person. It is not one idea. It does not fit one thing. I'm somebody, I don't want to say I grew up in the hood. I grew up hood adjacent. Like, meaning I lived in the hood, where my area is considered the hood, but I didn't consider myself a hood kid, because my mom was kind of she's the immigrant sheltered mother, like, oh, you can't hang out all the time outside, or if you're hanging out, it has to be with your older cousins and this. And so it's like, I had friends who were in that lifestyle and was going through that stuff, but I personally never went through it. So I would consider myself hood adjacent, meaning, so when I see like hood stories, I'm like, I could relate to certain aspects, but not everything. But then when I see like Blackish, I could relate to certain aspects of my mom wanting me to go to school and doing this. And it's like, you can see yourself in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different settings, not necessarily in the household, but you can see yourself in a character in the way they act. Like, black kids, I hate the term whitewash, I hate the term alternative black kids, because in the end of the day, these are just black children, and you feel like because they don't fit the stereotype, they're like an other black. And it's like, no, these are still black kids. They just happen to not fit the stereotypical norm that we often feed into. And it's kind of like, why is that a thing that we're doing to them? Like, why are we making it seem like, oh, being such a not thing is like whitewash? And it's like, no, there's just a black kid who grew up in suburbia, so they're gonna be influenced by their surroundings. And just like I was influenced by, I don't want to say I grew up in suburbia, but I went to school in middle school. I went to school with a lot of kids who grew up in suburbia and grew up in sheltered homes and didn't know about certain aspects, and they didn't know what like box braids were. They were shocked that I could make a ponytail with my two braids. Like, when you don't have a hair tie, you like make two braids. They were shocked that I could do that. And it's kind of like, everybody doesn't grow up the same. Every black kid does not grow up the same, especially if you're like an immigrant child versus somebody who was born strictly from parents who are already from here. And it's kind of like, we need to cover all those aspects, and to feel like because certain things don't fit the stereotypes that they're not as black is very discouraging. Because I want black shows, or shows with black characters, where their main arc or their main personality trait is not that they're black. They just happen to be black. Like the Cartoon Network show Craig of the Creek. That is a black suburbia kid, but his whole thing is not about him being black. He just happens to be a character that is black. Like, if you're going to create a character that is black, you create that character first and their personalities and what you want to see in them, and then you can be like, okay, now they're black, and we can add some parts of cultural aspects in there. Because yes, I still want to see a cookout on TV. I still want to see, you know, the little arguments that we get into. But at the same time, it's kind of like your whole thing shouldn't be black, because with a white person, it's not, oh, their whole thing is white or their whole thing is this. And it's not just an issue for black people. It's an issue with anybody, any minority, anybody else who doesn't fit the stereotypical norm. It's like their whole personality or their whole character is about them not fitting in. And it's kind of like, no, I want to see a coming of age story of a black character that has nothing to do with drugs, nothing to do with violence. It's just a simple movie, like 10 Things I Hate About You. If I saw a black character like that, I would love to see it, because it wasn't about her being white, it wasn't about her being this, it was just kind of like a movie, and she just happens to be white. But if you change her skin tone, it would not change the plot of the movie. That's what I feel like media needs to kind of understand. Like, yes, as a black person, you want to see your culture represented, whether you're an immigrant child or straight from America, or you're a different type of black person from Africa or Europe or wherever you may live. Yes, we want to see ourselves on TV and we want to see our culture represented, but at the same time, that is not our only identity. Like, yes, we are black, but that is not the only thing I am. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like I wake up every day and I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, I'm black. That's my only trait. Like, no, like, we have other things going for us. We are educated, we are innovative, we are stylish, fashionable. Like, there are so many more aspects you could, like, go through with the black community that I just feel like people don't. And I feel like we as black people, we kind of look at Hollywood to do that for us. And I'm like, I get it, because, you know, if everybody else is getting it, why can't I get it? But we also have to realize Hollywood and things of that nature was not created or thought about when it was created for the other people who don't fit the stereotypical white, straight, whatever it may be. So we have to often think, like, if they're not going to do it for us, we have to do it ourselves. And I shout out to my best friend. I'll put his Instagram, Soulful100. He tells me that all the time. He's like, stop looking at other people to do stuff for us. We have to create our own things. If people won't do it for us, we have to create our own things. And I feel like that is something we really need to think about. Like, if somebody doesn't want to create a show for us, create your own shows. Start finding writers. Start finding producers. Start finding a way in to make your own space, because obviously no one's going to make it for us. So that is everything I have to say about media representation and seeing people in different lights and things of that nature. So me being in school, a lot of our arguments that I see among black kids is PWI versus HBCU. And if I'm being very honest and very frank, I hate this argument so much. I despise this argument. And I'm somebody that goes to a PWI, and that's not why I hate the argument. The reason I hate the argument is I feel like we often forget we are black children getting an education. That's the first and foremost. You are black and you're getting an education, which is what a lot of our ancestors and a lot of our parents want for us. They want us to be like able to succeed, because we already know a degree helps put foot in the door. It doesn't always work, but it is a good step. It is a good backup plan to whatever you want to have that security of a degree. So when the discussion of PWI versus HBCU comes up, a lot of HBCU argument is about you going to a school where you're no longer the minority, where you are the majority, which I completely understand. You are now in this space where you are like top dog. You don't feel like an outcast because everybody is either looks like you or they've come from the same similar background. I understand the importance of HBCUs. I understand why it was created and what time they were created and why they were created to benefit black people, especially because, you know, we weren't allowed at white institutions. So I understand the importance of an HBCU. I just feel at the same time, you cannot down a black kid for going to a PWI, because you never know the reasons for it. It might be because they've always grown up in suburbia around a lot of white people, so it's just more comfortable for them because they always felt like the other. Because let's be honest, let's be very frank, when a black person doesn't fit the stereotypical norm that is what black people are supposed to be, they get a lot of flack for it. Like, I've been told I'm an Oreo, that I talk very white, but if I'm being honest, I can turn it on and off. Like, I can speak slang or whatever the case may be, AAVE. I can speak that dialect, but I can also speak very, like, standard English. I put air quotes because there are different dialects of English, so I don't consider anything standard. And I feel like you also have to, like, think about, like, financial situations, because if we're being very honest, HBCUs are very underfunded, which is not fair. It's not fair at all. The amount of money they get from the government is not fair compared to a PWI. I feel like they should be allotted more because of their historical significance and how much they do help black people, and how much resources they do give their black students when they are used correctly. And I feel like the funding, the disparity in funding is not fair at all, which is, I feel like, it's a big issue that we don't really talk about, or we need to talk about more. And the reason that I feel like a lot of PWI kids feel some type of way is because they feel as though people are making them feel less than black because they go to a PW. All I'm going to say to that is, if you are black and you go to a PWI, you are black, period. You're not less than black. You're not whitewashed. You're not anything. Because if I'm going honest, the PWI I go to, they pay me to go to school. Like, they pay for my tuition and everything of that nature, and then I get money back. So I'm getting a return. I'm getting money on my education investment. I'm getting paid, which I really appreciate, because my mother is an immigrant and she went into debt trying to go to school and get her degree. I don't want that. I don't want debt on me. Other HBCUs that I applied to, that I got into, did offer me money, but it just wasn't enough. I would still have to take out loans. And it's kind of like, yes, you could apply for as many scholarships, but it's no guarantee you're going to get them. And I just needed a guaranteed plan that I was not having to pay for school, which is why I did choose a PWI, which I feel like a lot of black kids do, because PWIs, because they are more funded, they do give a lot more scholarships, especially to like underprivileged kids. I don't want to consider myself underprivileged. I'm not like the most wealthiest person ever, but I don't consider myself dirt poor, like, you know. So I just feel like that's a lot of reasons why black kids do go to PWIs, because of the funding, and it's kind of like less of a financial burden for your parents. And HBCU, like, I know plenty of my friends that are going to HBCU with scholarships and financial aid and things of that nature, but then I also know friends that are taking out loans on top of loans, and it's kind of like, yes, I understand why you want to go to a HBCU. The experience is magnificent, the education beautiful. You're getting black professors, black counselors. You're hearing about black history that they will not teach you at a PWI. Like, anything that I know about black history, I've had to learn on my own. I've had to educate myself on my own. I've had to learn from other friends who learned from, you know, their professors and things like that. So it's like, I do understand the benefits of going to a HBCU, and I understand the benefits of going to a PWI, which is why I feel like that argument is kind of dumb, because it's like, it's pros and cons to both institutions. And at the end of the day, I feel like we should both just realize we are black kids getting an education, bettering ourselves, and basically we're trying to generate generational wealth for our future generations and future black kids who we want to see be successful. Like, well, I'm rooting for everybody black who support everybody who's black. I don't do people who are selectional black. No, you root for everybody that's black, period. So let's go on to the next topic. Black community. I am tired of this conversation. I'm tired of speaking on it. It's getting very tiring. Like, we're in 2020. Why are we still having this conversation? It's like, how are we supposed to have the black community get better, but yet we don't want to fix any of the turmoil within the black community? It's not really making sense to me. And colorism is a thing not just black people face, but a lot of other minorities, whether you're a Hispanic descendant, that means you're like more indigenous and you're darker toned, or you're Asian and you're darker toned. There's colorism in every community, but specifically in the black community, it is very tiring. And the reason I say this is because a lot of it has to do with the gaslighting in the community. The gaslighting people face when speaking about their struggles in the black community is very sickening. Like, how can you say you're for black people, but then when they speak on a certain topic, whether it makes you uncomfortable or not, you tell them, no, that never happened, you're wrong. It's kind of like, ma'am, sir, what's going on? So with colorism in the black community, it affects genders differently. We need to speak on that. It affects genders differently, and it affects skin tones differently. So what I will say about this is, if we're being honest, in society, having lighter skin tone or fairer skin tone makes you more desirable in people's eyes, because it goes back to slavery days and all of that stuff. It made you seem more like you were closer in proximity to whiteness. So, and I feel like a lot of people kind of like make it a thing to like gaslight and discredit black women when speaking on it, especially other black women and other black men. And it's frankly disgusting, because it's kind of like, how are you going to tell me my experience? And it's kind of like, I don't know what the disconnect is, where the disconnect is coming from, but it's honestly getting very tiring. I will say, like, if we're talking about dark-skinned women and dark-skinned men, they both have the quality of being seen as aggressive and very intimidating which is a plus and a bad side. Let me get into it. It's a plus side for a man because a man loves to be seen as confident and intimidating. Intimidating is not always a good thing when we're talking about like police brutality and stuff, but when you're talking about like relationship wise, it's seen as this like good thing of like, yes, a masculine man and this, that, and the third. But then on the flip side, it hurts the black woman because it's like we're not seen as feminine enough. They're seen as more masculine and more like rugged, and as if they don't deserve the same amount of love, and as if they're too bitter and nasty. And then if we're looking at it from the lighter skin tone complexion, we're talking about the aspect of how light-skinned women are seen as more delicate and more fragile, which is nice to be seen if you're a woman and that's like you fit like society standards of being seen as a woman that's fragile and like delicate and needs to be protected, versus it's kind of bad for a light-skinned man because now people are viewing him less of a man because he's not as masculine because of this trait that light-skinned people are more fragile and things of that nature. And it kind of just hurts on both aspects. And I kind of just feel like what people forget is that you can't compare struggles, because comparing struggles is a losing argument for whatever side it may be on, because other sides face one thing that the other side will not face. I will say some struggles are harder than others because of like the bigger grand scale of things. And I hate when we have a conversation on colorism and a lighter skin tone woman will come in and be like, well, I was bullied all the time because I was light skinned and beautiful. And it's kind of like, you got bullied for being pretty. And I'm not gonna act like that's not a thing, because jealousy is a thing. Jealousy is a thing where people bully you, but I don't feel like it was always because of like your skin tone. I feel like it's more so because it's jealousy, or it might have been envy, versus when a dark skinned woman is like saying, oh, I hated my skin tone, I didn't want to be my color, I wanted to be lighter, because it always seemed like everybody went for the lighter girls, or in media you didn't see somebody as dark as me, or I was always viewed as aggressive and nasty. Like, it got to the point that people used to give other people skin bleaching products. Like, I remember at one point when I was doing band, we used to be outside 24/7. I'm somebody, I tan and I burn very easily, so like I wasn't like, I used to be like boom in the sun for like an hour, boom, instant tan, like you could see it on my face. And if I pull up a picture, if I could find a picture, I'll put it in. If I don't, I don't. And it was just kind of like, you would have thought I was a whole different person. And I kind of remember hating it because it was always this thing of like, I went to a transitioning from a all white school to an all black school was very hard, because you went from this school where everybody goes for the Hispanic girls and the white girls, and you're sitting here as a brown girl, like as a brown black woman, you're kind of just like, okay, where do I fit in this scenario? Like, what's going on? Like, no one ever had a crush on you, no one ever paid you any mind, and if somebody did quote unquote like you, or they wanted to see you with somebody, it was always another black kid, and it was kind of like, you know. So that aspect, I'm not gonna act as if lighter skinned people don't face some type of adversity in the sense of like they're not viewed as black enough, because I frankly hate that term that somebody's not black enough, because what is black? Black is multifaceted. There's more than one thing. So I can understand their struggle in that point, but I hate when people come in the conversation and try to divert it, or they try to be like, well, what about us and what about this? It's kind of like, have your own conversation, start your own discussion. Do not come into someone else's discussion to try and take away from their struggles and take away from their narrative and what they have going on. Like, that bothers me. Like, it bothers me because it seems to me like whenever we're talking about colorism and black women are speaking up about their issues, and when I say black women, I mean like dark-skinned black women or darker brown women speak about their issues, you'll always have that one or two fair-skinned women. Like, I'm not all of them, I will never generalize, not all of them, but you'll have one or two come in and be like, well, what about da-da-da-da-da? And it's kind of like, y'all never voice your opinion until you hear someone else voicing theirs, and it's kind of like, what is that about? It's either you care about it and you want to voice your opinion, or you're just doing it to take away from somebody else because you like the attention to be on you. And I want to talk about the fetishization of like mixed babies or lighter skin tone babies. It's really weird. It's sick. It's I don't know how to explain it other than it's weird. I don't know why you fetishize what your baby's gonna look like, because as soon as that child does not come out looking like that way, it's going to be an issue, and I don't like that, because every mixed kid does not come out light. I hope you guys know that. I hope you know genetics doesn't always work like that. Genetics gets a little wonky sometimes. Not saying that it's a bad thing to be dark or anything of that nature. Never that. Never that. Black is beautiful in all shades, every range. But you have to realize genetics doesn't always work in the favor of, I have a dark person, I have a light person. When I put them together, I get a middle. No, it doesn't always happen like that. they might take more so after their father and or mother and be really dark, or they might take after the other parent and be very light or very pale, or maybe they'll just be the perfect mix in between. So when you fetishize mixed babies, it's weird because you're fetishizing only lighter skinned mixed babies, as if mixed babies cannot be darker skinned or have coarser hair, and it's weird. And it also needs to be said, just because someone is light does not make them mixed, and just because someone is mixed doesn't make them, is not gonna mean they're light. People forget how genetics work, and then like the colorism that comes in of like discrediting someone's experiences is disgusting. Like, I would never act like another person cannot experience colorism, whether they're lighter or darker, but I just don't appreciate the notion of coming into someone else's discussion to try and divert what their experiences and what they're, essentially talking about. It's kind of like, what is your purpose in doing that? Like, how does that help the conversation? How does that better us in any way, shape, or form? Especially media does not help with the showing of only lighter toned women and barely showing black, darker skinned women. It's tiring. I'm tired of seeing it. It's like I'm seeing the same face in different scripts with a different hairstyle. And that's just frankly what it is. So maybe it'll get better, maybe it won't. And the only way it can get better for sure, that we know definitely will make it better, is if black people create their own things and stop relying on white producers and white Hollywood to do it for us. So that is my take on colorism in the black community. It is a discussion that we need to take serious. We need to stop gaslighting people and things of that nature. So, yeah, we just gotta realize it affects genders in different ways. It affects men versus women in different ways and things of that nature, especially when other factors are put in, like socioeconomic, sexuality, and all of that stuff. It affects people very, very differently. So, yeah, that is my take on colorism in the black community. I know it's different for other racial communities, and I can't speak on that because I'm not amongst them. So, yeah, let's do better, people. Wow, this went for a long time. I don't know how I'm going to edit it, so I don't know how many minutes it's going to be because I kind of just kept stopping the clock and restarting it. All I have to say is, I love the black community. We are beautiful, wonderful, educated, and we are just beautiful people. Please ignore him. And I just can't wait to see us all prosper. Black women, I love you no matter who bashes you, no matter who says you're not enough. You are enough to me. You are the ish. Whether you're black, I said black. Whether you're big, plus size, fat, whatever the case may be, fat is not a bad word. It is simply an adjective. Whether you're fat, skinny, sexually not standard, or whatever the case may be, I appreciate you. You are loved. You are appreciated. I want to see you prosper. So that is all I have. If you guys want to hear about a certain topic, conspiracy theory, whatever the case may be, leave it down in the comment section below. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And what should I call my subscribers? Because I honestly don't know. So if you have a clue, let your girl know. I will be back. I'll try and post weekly, and if I don't, message me because my social media will be linked. Be like, hey girl, where are you? Post, And I don't think I'm going to be promoting my stuff as much on my Instagram because simply, if I stop or I get less motivated, I don't want people to be like, oh, you keep going in and out and in and out. Yeah, so it is what it is. I hope you guys enjoyed.
Subscribe.
Please do. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Bye!